Remember, knowledge is not free. You have to pay attention.
You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over! Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass!
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding looking horse he is.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Hey, what do you say, everybody? Geo Sette, Past the Wire TV, coming back at you on Monday, following a extremely eventful and involved weekend in the thoroughbred racing community, specifically at Saratoga for the 4-day mega event, the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. So what I wanted to go over, just to give you some thoughts and reflections and takeaways from the Belmont Stakes. I'm hoping everybody had a very safe and enjoyable 4-day run at Saratoga. I had a lot to share, and for those that follow me and understand the way I handicap, I feel you did really, really well. I don't mind sharing my full grid when I do, because I take a lot of pride in the very specifics of my handicap and the time I put into it. But I'm here today to talk about the Belmont Stakes. Didn't hit the high note because I couldn't get past Sierra Leone, for many, many reasons that I went over on my show. And by the way, really important, when you took in the show I did with Big Race Jim, the Belmont Stakes analysis, covering every horse, for future reference, if you enjoy watching our shows on Past the Wire TV, absorb, take it all in, and then ultimately you make the decision that's best for you at the window. Always value your opinion first. And of course, if you're watching somebody like myself, who's, let's just say, I'm pretty seasoned at this game, to say the least, you're gonna absorb and capture many pearls and nuggets that are gonna be useful in your ways and how you approach a big race, or any race for that matter. For example, before I go over the Belmont Stakes, one of the things I did score in, because obviously there are many elaborate different betting gimmicks and ways to make money at the racetrack. But I always say this, and by the way, I did a show specifically speaking of underlays and overlays, which you could check it out here on Past the Wire TV. And on that show, I talked about using the Superfecta as a gimmick to your advantage, especially if you have horses or various horses in your handicap that made your grade and they were inflated odds, 10-1 or better. With that said, the way I approach any race, whether it's a maiden special weight field at Monmouth or Gulfstream Park, or graded 1 and graded 2 stakes race, if it's a field of 7 or less, my focus is my top 3, and I work with that. If it's a deep field, 10 or better, like many fields are, especially grade 1, grade 2, top level races, but even a maiden special race, I work with my top 6 or 7 in my handicap, because I could find the type of value I need in putting together my ticket structure and deciding on which bets I want to make. So with the Belmont Stakes, my focus was 10 horse field. I'm going with my top 6 that I know I landed on as the top 6 most probable contenders or winners or horses that are going to run a big race of the 10. This way, I eliminated the 4 horses who I felt like weren't ready or wouldn't perform at the level, and then I would recognize what their odds would be. So keep that in mind, because, yeah, my top 6 did a lot of wonders for a lot of folks, and I'll tell you how. Even though we didn't get Sierra Leone home, because trust me, I keyed him with so much. But it doesn't, if you approach the race like that, it doesn't eliminate your betting considerations overall. So let's break down the race and on how it all went and how it finished. We know the results, but I watched the race several times on my big screen, and this is what I come up with. All right, I'm going to run down from start to finish in post-position order. Seize the Gray. Now, those of you who watched my show, you'll know that he was one of the ones I shorted. I felt like he would be at the back of the field. He had nice form. What he did in the Preakness was special, but remember, there were many contributing factors that led to that finish in the Preakness. I tip my hat to him, to the jock, the ownership group, and the coach. But I knew, and this is where I was right, and I'm going to admit when I was wrong, but I was right about Seize the Day. If there was going to be one of the 4 horses I was going to eliminate from all betting consideration, he'd be one of them. Raced well early. Ultimately, the 1.25 miles was too much for him, especially having this be his 3rd race in 5 weeks. Resilience. Resilience is another one that I didn't have a lot of energy towards. I did appreciate what he did in his last, and you know, in his Kentucky Derby, he made a move that would suggest that, you know, he would do well at this distance. He got out of the gate pretty well along, the first 100 yards or so with Seize the Gray and, the 10 who we're going to get into in Dornoch. But ultimately, he was used up early and he just ran a flat race. So I felt confident in that, and I was right that he was left off my tickets. Mystic Dan, Derby champ, interesting. He ran big in the Preakness as well. I had respect for him. So he was one of the guys who I had in my final handicap underneath Sierra Leone. And listen, another guy who was making his, 3rd start in 5 weeks in big races. Had a clean break, but it looks like the dry surface at Saratoga wasn't to his liking. He didn't have that, that strong stride type move to be up there early enough. And he basically ran an even race at best, and he never contended. The Wine Steward, the 4, who I spoke about on my show, here's where I was wrong. But I had every reason to be engaged and enjoy and put Wine Steward in my mix. I actually played a very robust exacta, Sierra Leone over Wine Steward. Because Wine Steward, to me, exhibited all the things I love in a racehorse. And I talked about this on my show. All right? Not only was he 6 for 6 in exactas, 6 for 6 in exactas, his career, but he was a New York bred that was racing fabulously in open company. And like I said, that grit, that tenacity, that willingness to be eyeballed and then keep running, he was a horse that, to me, and he had the pedigree. His daddy, Vino Rosso, made the distance. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic. So he finished up the track. He had nothing left. He was there early, a bit wide. But I knew halfway through the race he didn't have it. So it was one of the horses who I had highly ranked, right up there underneath Sierra Leone with Anna Marie, which we're going to get into. And he finished up the track. So Geo said he was wrong about Wine Steward, but he is a good racehorse. He'll be back. It just wasn't his day. But this why it lends itself to what I say about using your full handicap, and I'll tell you why. Antiquarian, the 5, another horse who, during my analysis and my show, You know, I thought he was moving forward, but I didn't have him in my top 6. I felt like he would do what he did. Run rather evenly, broke well, run rather evenly, and just not have enough to get the 1.25 mile at Saratoga. Then we go on to the winner, Dornoch. Now, Dornoch, it's funny, for a horse that was my 5th/6th horse. So he made my grade. He was in my handicap. But Dornoch, if you remember my show, I spoke about him being what I called physically imposing, a good-looking colt. He reminded me of Midnight Bourbon, who I was a big fan of a few years ago, who sadly passed away early in his life. But I knew he had that physicality I like, and I knew he was fast. And I absolutely love Luis Saez. So the reason why I didn't have him to win the race, for obviously I couldn't get past Sierra Leone, and I felt like my other horses were just more prepared for the race. But I did share that Dornoch not only had a real solid juvenile campaign, he had the look of tailing off as a 3-year-old, but if you look at his races, you can make an argument that they didn't go his way. In the bluegrass, he was on the pace, which is too fast for the bluegrass, and he just got inhaled, and I give a lot of credit to Just Touch for staying as long as he did, running second to Sierra Leone. And then in the Derby, from the 1 hole, just watch the race. You know, I thought Louise was going to run and gun him and he'd be a contender, maybe last for a share. But he finished like 10th up the track because he was just never giving a fighting chance. I mean, Mystic Dan beat him to the rail that day, and, you know, making the first turn, he wasn't there, and he was out of his element. You know what the Derby is. So coming into this race fresh with Luis Saez, who's one of my top 5 elite riders. Obviously, it was well known that he'd be on the pace, but he broke well. He took to the track. And one of the things I shared on my show is, look out. This guy may run his best race as a 3-year-old. And that's what happened. So I was happy that he made my handicap. And the reason for that, because he was in my top 6. Those that follow me and remembered my Superfecta show, if you took my top 6 in the Belmont, and say, you know what, things happen on a racetrack. Now, sure, most of my bets I keyed Sierra Leone because I couldn't get past him. He was my winner. I was alive in the double, the pick 3, pick 4, made hefty exactas with him on top. We all saw what happened. I'm gonna get into that when I get to Sierra Leone. But the Superfecta, particularly the Superfecta box, because 3 of my horses would be at generous odds, part of my handicap, it made sense. So if you took my top 6, as I talked about on another show, and simply boxed them for a dime, it cost you $36, and you ended up collecting $320 from your $36. Now, if you got a lot of money, you did it for 50 cents, and you got, let me do the math, you got $1,600. And if you did it for $1, it cost you $360, but you got $3,200. But just to talk about how it's another betting scheme when the situation is suitable. Not when everybody's at low odds, but when you have contenders in your mind at double-digit odds. You got to understand it. That's how you make a bet in that category. So I already saw that some of our viewers and some of our readers past the wire did that. Made me happy to see. Protective, the 7. All right, the maiden, Pletcher, Gaffleon, was off my grid, even though he's up and coming and he seems to have some talent. When I did this race, something I was right about, regardless of the odds, I knew it was too much of an ask. So I put the 7 in my bottom 4, eliminating him from all my tickets. Okay? Anna Marie. Now, Anna Marie, the visions I had, is specifically what happened. And obviously, and most of you guys are big fans, you know the horse. So based on his full body of work and his atrocious, unfortunate run I shouldn't really say it was atrocious. It wasn't really his fault in the Kentucky Derby. He was just, he was swallowed up. He was bounced around. He can never make the run that the horse is trained to do. But in this race, he did. He just wasn't good enough. Sat last, I believe around the first turn. Fractions were 23, 47. Seemed to have moderate pace in front of him. He made his run, and he was good enough to hit the board, as I expected, He was in my handicap for third, and he was right there. He hit the board. He was part of the Superfecta. Wasn't good enough to win. Sierra Leone. I became really enamored by him because his body of work, and I talked about this on the show, and we all know it, but he basically was 5 for 5. He had 3 wins. The level of competition was all graded stakes, grade 1 stakes competition. His 2 losses were by inches, both of them, literally by inches. Unfortunately, when he broke out of the gate, he was smacked and bumped. That's not so much of a big issue, but he seemed to, stumble a bit too. And, he had some pace. He made his run. But when he made the turn, did you see what happened? Protective, ironically ridden by Tyler Gaffalione, bumped him. And I just think that cost him a little of his beginning momentum. No excuses. He made his run. He was fast closing, but he was third. But he still hit the board. But I had to tear up a lot of tickets when he didn't win the race. I was alive in a double. I was alive in a pick 3. I keyed him. If he wins, I have the triple and a super multiple times because all my underneath horses were there. Not all. The 2 that ran out I talked about. Wine Steward ran out. So did Mystic Dan, who was on the bottom. But I had Anna Marie. I had Dornoch, and I had Mindframe. Let's talk about Mindframe. Another thing I shared. Irad, arguably the world's best rider right now. Rapoli had every right to put this horse in. Lightly raced. He only ran his maiden and an optional claimer. Broke well. Sat right off the lead. Thought Irad was going to steal it. And then he bore out. And, he drifted so bad, cost him the race. And when he drifted, Dornoch kept on, and Dornoch emerged victorious. And, I had Mindframe in the money, 4th, maybe 3rd, and, he finished 2nd. But my point I'm making, you could do so many things right in your handicap and still tear up tickets. And then you could be off as well with some. But if you go deep enough in your handicap with certain gimmicks, you could still be profitable. And Mindframe showed that he only had 2 races. And when you have 2 races and you're going into the grade 1 Belmont Stakes, it's going to be tough to win. And the fact that he's so inexperienced cost him the race because he drifted out, even with a world-class elite rider like Irad on him. You know what else I thought was crazy? In my jockey colony standings, in terms of elite status, look who was 1, 2, and 3 in this race. All right? The winner was Luis Saez. Top 5 in my book, maybe even top 3. Irad 2nd. And who's 3rd? Flavian Pratt. So arguably the 3 best riders in the country, somewhat different, but arguably, finished 1, 2, and 3 in the Belmont Stakes, and a robust exacta, triple, and superfecta payoff. It happens. So I just wanted to share some thoughts about the Belmont. On the undercard, I was excited, thrilled with the day. I had some real nice scores. I'm hoping the day worked out for all of you. Stay tuned here on Past the Wire TV. I got a big show coming up for the Haskell, right in my backyard here at Monmouth. Grade 1 Haskell $1 million race. I won't be in my gym attire because well, maybe I'll do my show in my gym attire, but I'll be in the press box that day, and I'll be involved, with so much that's going on at Monmouth that day. And of course, we have so many other big races coming up at Saratoga. So stay with us here at Past the Wire TV. Any comments or questions or concerns, we appreciate them, whether it's myself, Big Race Jim, or the crew chief, John. Remember, when you're watching the shows, there's a ton of information to absorb. So you do your handicap, and then you absorb additional information from other people like myself who may provide worthwhile information to help you make a more informed decision at the window. I talk about it often. So I felt bad for Saratoga because what happened on Sunday, Saturday night, they had a lot of rain, and Sunday, obviously all those turf races came off the turf. It was sloppy. The fields were, chopped down. So I feel bad for the people that did a Saturday and Sunday run of the festival, and they had all that happen on Sunday. But it's still Saratoga. So lots to look forward to. The summer meet at Saratoga. Lots going on in Monmouth. And we'll win. We'll win together. All right? That's it. I got to go get a workout in. Keep punching. Keep watching. See you real soon.
In the 2023 First Crop Sires Race, Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Mitoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vino Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Mitoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
With new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to drf.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Mini, a top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, Grade 2 winner, Winstock, and Stakes winner, Solo Shot. Solo Mini, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a Grade 1 or Grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 2-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average, more than 12 times the stud fee. Solo Mini, a controversial DQ from being a Grade 1 winner by 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds. Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup. Pick 6. King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Does it better.